Welcome to the podcast. Today, my guest is Rick Hollis.
Hi.
So, Rick, what are your earliest memories of getting into music?
My parents had a little record player. This is my earliest memories with the single of Bohemian Rhapsody. And it had, on this little record player, it had separate volumes for left and right speakers. And as a 3-year-old, I'd sit there and spin out that I could turn up one side and the other. And am I allowed to swear? I'll try not to swear. I'm like, oh crap, how's that? I can actually adjust the sound and just hear one Galileo and not the other. And that sort of sparked my interest in sound way before.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was always that kid that had the tennis racket, sort of playing air guitar and stuff, not knowing how to play. I think my dad had a guitar. Yes, he did. It was a nylon string Yamaha. We didn't know how to tune it or anything like that. And then my folks got me, I would have been 4 or 5 or something, a steel string acoustic guitar, which we had no idea how to tune. And we had friends come over and go, we know how to tune this. They tuned it up way too high and it snapped in half. Oh. And that was the end of my music career right there.
Wow.
Until high school.
Until high school?
No, I tell a lie. Because synthesizers, before I was a guitar nerd, I was a synth nerd, dude.
Wow.
Yeah, drum machines and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did that manifest itself? How did it come about that you were into synths?
Some friends of ours got an organ for their family, and one of my best mates in school. And I used to go around and was fascinated with this organ with drum machines and stuff in there. So my mum went and did some work to save up some money and bought me an organ. And it was a Hammond Ace Tone, had the 2 keyboards and a drum machine. And I was just fascinated with the drum machine. This is all primary school stuff.
Yeah.
And I was doing stuff like pressing in 2 buttons on beats at the same time. And in hindsight, making drum and bass beats, so all that, all that, playing with the tempos and stuff. And I was just fascinated with that. I was too young to know that was a speaker behind the grill cloth. I actually thought there was mechanical stuff in there, like when it was a bossa nova beat, that there was things clicking and stuff in there.
Yeah.
So I had a really early fascination with synthesizers and drum machines. Fame, do you remember the TV show Fame?
Yeah.
There was the dude Bruno on there, and he was a one-man band. He was the keyboard synth guy. And I used to watch that and just go, I want to do what that guy's doing. And on the radio, you had Howard Jones. Who was some of the
Oh man, I loved Howard Jones.
Howard Jones,
Thomas Dolby. He was famous for doing a one-man show with a multitude of Yamaha DX7s.
Yeah. Nick Kershaw, Thomas Dolby, all those guys were huge on the radio. And I was really into that whole one-man band synthesizer thing. I remember seeing on Simon Townsend's Wonderworld the Fairlight CMI synth sampler. And I was like, what? You can sample a dog or say hello into this thing and play it? So I remember there was a little Casio keyboard you could get at Kmart. Mm-hmm. And I would just go to Kmart, grab this little synth and sample my voice and noises and be sitting there as a kid just playing with this thing, fascinated that you could do that stuff. So I was more into music technology on a really basic level, way before I ever learnt to play any guitar.
Okay, so that being said, what was the thing that got you into playing guitar?
Marianne Griffin, who became Marianne Jenkinson, was my grade 8 music teacher.
Oh, okay.
We had to do a song for grade 8 music, and it was The Sloop John B by the Beach Boys and The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan. So there was some D, G and A7 chords. Mm-hmm. There was only 2 kids that got 10 out of 10 in all of grade 8 for that. Me and another guy who ended up being the dux of the school that got 10 out of 10 for everything. He wasn't musical, he was just an academic. So my teacher recognised that I had a bit of a musical talent, and she's like, what music do you like? And I'm like, oh, I like that Dire Straits stuff I hear on the radio. So she went and photocopied some sheet music to like Walk of Life and gave me that. It had little chord boxes at the top. And so she encouraged me to learn some other chords on top of my D, G and A7. So Marianne Jenkinson, I've always wanted to thank her if I ever caught up with her. I have looked her up on Facebook but haven't found her.
Obviously, you had access to a guitar at school.
At school, but I also had a nylon string. I said my dad had a Yamaha nylon string when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Had no idea how to play it or anything until we had to do school. But then I'd go home and go, man, I didn't realise it was going to hurt my fingers so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really lucky, though. Two of my really good friends at school were really musical guys that didn't really have the confidence to play in bands. One of them was Matty Day, Andrew Day from Big Stick and all that.
Yeah.
So his younger brother was one of my best mates at school. And so he'd play guitar and he's insanely musical. The way I tune a guitar, I got from Matty Day, and that's tuning it to the distortion until the harmonics all line up and stuff. And he worked all this stuff out himself. And when we were like 14, 15-year-old kids. So I was lucky to have someone like him around and my friend Michael Sharpie, who also could play a bit of guitar and stuff. And while he was learning the basics of playing your D, G and that, I would improvise over the top because I'd just learn a pentatonic scale. Woo! And so you always got to have somebody to jam with on that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just a short interruption to say thank you for watching the podcast. Please subscribe, make a comment, like, share. It all helps in spreading the podcast far and wide, and it's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
I do remember seeing somewhere where you were fairly young and the first real good electric was a Strat that you got.
I won a Strat. So my first guitar, my mum went and worked again. Like my parents had separated and I was living just with my mum and she saw I was doing good with the guitar and wanted to encourage that. So she scrubbed toilets to save up to buy me an electric guitar. And it was an Onyx Strat copy.
Okay.
I've still got the guts of it, just the body and neck. I'm going to redo that up and make it live again. So I had that. So I had that Strat bug for quite a while. And then in 1990, I won the under-18 section of the Best Guitarist on the Gold Coast competition and won a Japanese Strat. And that was my first serious guitar.
And they were making good Strats back then.
Almost exactly the same as Chris Goodridge's one that you might see him online with, except mine had a maple fretboard. For a while there, I'm going, is that my old guitar? No, mine had maple.
So it was blue.
Lake Placid blue.
Lake Placid blue. Yeah. I had a nice Lake Placid blue. It had, at one point in time, the one that was called, remember the Strat? It had the blue headstock as well. There was a blue and a red one, and I had a blue one with the gold hardware.
Cool.
I love that guitar.
Yeah.
And then I sold it. I sold it to a guy, and I've tried to buy it back off him, and he's got like half a dozen of them. He loves them, and he managed. But he was like, "Nah, you're not getting that one back."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah. But so that was a pretty good guitar.
Yeah.
But the music I was playing, it probably wasn't that well suited. The first good guitar that I bought was my Hamer, which I still have. Hamer Chaparral Elite with Sustainiac was the.
So why would you consider that a better guitar? Or was it just more suitable for what you were doing, or
handmade American guitar, man? That was like a
so
at the time
tuning stability better.
Floyd Rose and all that, man. It came delivered to the music store I was working at, direct from America. It was one that they picked out for NAMM, so it was a good one. It's like, what have we got at the factory that's. Yeah, this one's bulletproof. It was perfectly in tune out of the box from America. So I've been a Floyd Rose guy for a long time because of that, because they just stable as. And then I just realized in comparison with the music that I was playing at the time that the Strat just sort of sounded a bit thin and pokey. And plus it had a much bigger, fatter neck, which I came to like later on. But just wasn't the right sound for my bands at the time, the Pumpernicles.
So what sort of music were the Pumpernicles playing?
We were like, we started out being called The Talk.
Okay.
And we got together. Man, I can remember the first time I ever jammed with those guys. I was very lucky that from day one, I played with one of the best drummers in Queensland, old Mukey, Marcus Watson. I can remember being at school and I just started to learn to play some sort of surf guitar basics like Wipeout, stuff like that. And there was these two guys that used to jam in the music block that were in grade 12 and I was in grade 10. Old Mukey on drums, who was just killing it with playing Wipeout and all the big solos and stuff. It was just like, how do you even do that? And him and Devo, Stephen Head, on keyboards, holding everything else down. And like I said, I used to watch them through the window going, no way. And then one time they heard me jamming with a couple of other mates and they invited me to go and have a jam with them. And I realised within 10 or 15 minutes, we had half the school looking in through the window just going, no way, listen to this. So we put a band together, and that's with Mikey Edwards was in that as well, playing bass. So I've been playing with him for a bloody long time, man. Yeah. And we started this band, The Talk, and we went into a battle of the bands and we won that. And we thought, oh, we might have something here, and just started playing school dances and things like that. Next thing you know, we're out playing. We're opening for Mondo Rock and Richard Clapton, all this kind of stuff. Like I said, I was a 14-year-old kid. That's the first time I saw Peter Northcote play as well.
Oh, wow.
He was playing for Richard Clapton.
Yeah.
And it was years later that I clicked, oh, you're the Pinky SP guy. Yeah, so we did some really cool opening spots. Painters and Dockers was another major band we played with back in the day that was a great gig. And yeah, so I was very lucky to find myself playing with some of the best players around.
It's one of those things too where if you're excited and you're young and you get inspired by the other people around you and vice versa.
You got to raise your game.
Everyone's level comes up because everyone's inspired and you're loving what you do. And it's one of those things when you're loving what you do, you put a lot of time and effort into it, and it doesn't feel like you're putting time and effort into it because you're just having fun.
Yeah. A lot of time went into playing, and man, the teenage years, and I see it with people that I teach myself, like that space of 1 or 2 years when you first start, you really go from plinky plonky, trying to get your coordination together. The next thing you know, you're playing Eruption and stuff like that.
It can happen very quickly.
I was a nipper around the time when I started playing.
Yep.
So, I was all about being down the beach every weekend. And but then I started doing those gigs and I'd be getting home at 4 a.m. because support acts have got to help load the truck and everything.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah. So I'd be getting home at 4 a.m. and you know what? I'm not getting up at 6 a.m. to go to nippers anymore.
How old were you then?
14.
Wow, so you're getting home at 4 a.m. at 14?
Yeah. Reeking of cigarettes too. I remember my old gig bag just stunk because everyone smoked in venues back then.
How did that go from the point of view of, I mean, I know there was a period where the whole underage thing wasn't policed very heavily, but how did that work with the being underage and doing that stuff?
Most were cool with it. Some were like, oh, as long as you hang out in the back room and don't go out in the venue. But we opened for weddings, parties, anything at the Patch. And again, this is when I'm 14. And we did 2 sets beforehand and I didn't want to be in the smoky venue in between. So I went outside. They wouldn't let me back in. I can remember going to walk back in and the guy saying, mate, sorry, it's a over 18s venue. You can't come in here. I'm like, but I'm in the band. Sure, you're in the band. And I'm standing there like for ages just going, oh, seriously, like I'm supposed to be playing right now. And eventually this roadie comes out going, there you are. We've been looking everywhere for you, mate. Get inside. And I just looked at the bouncer and I'm like, told you I was in the band. But I was really small, skinny little guy, man. And so...
Well, I don't remember you being small, but I do remember when you were
I had quite a growth spurt.
A lot thinner.
Yeah, I had quite a growth spurt around 17 or something. But when we started that band, I was a little small, skinny guy. And like the singer used to throw me up on his shoulders and stuff. And it was a bit of a novelty to see this little kid playing Eruption and stuff. And
yeah. And I guess that's that part of that whole entertainment factor as well.
Absolutely.
Which obviously you guys were into.
Yeah. But we were playing a lot of Australian surf rock, like Sunny Boys. I know you're a Kingscliff guy. And they're from down around there.
Yeah.
Sort of alternative, like the Screaming Tribesmen, Lime Spiders, that kind of stuff. The guys were into that kind of stuff. Yeah, so, and my rig back then, dude, was a Boss heavy metal pedal, HM2, into a a PV Studio 112 amp, and in hindsight, what a crap sound for that kind of music.
I remember I used to have the Boss, the yellow Boss overdrive. I've still got it actually, and but that there was a point in time when music was getting a bit heavier, and to get a bit more distortion, you had to have a HM2.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think, and I think one of the appealing things, if my memory serves me correctly, the heavy metal pedal, it actually had a bass and treble control.
Yep.
Which the old overdrive just had a tone control. It's like one step better now. I can. Terrible sounding pedal. Terrible. But everybody I think back at that time had one.
Yeah.
It was either that or I think the Rat pedals came out around the same time.
Never had a Rat.
I never had a Rat either, but I remember they were very popular as well back then.
I think I remember seeing Steve Kuhn using one back in the day. And he was one of the first guys I ever saw up close playing. I remember as a kid riding past, there was a music store at Miami, and looking under the closed door because we hear a band playing in there, and looking and Steve coming out going, "Oh, can I help you?" I was like, "Oh no, we're just listening to you rip shit there." But I was lucky. I had another good mate, John Karakatsanis, whose brother George was in the army, but was a total gearhead.
Oh, okay.
So sorry George, but when you're in the army, dude, we used to go into your room and pull out all these tube screamers and all these different pedals, and so there's these photos of me at 14 with. I didn't own any of them, but all these pedals that would hook up and go, oh, what does this flanger pedal do? Oh. And just trying all different stuff that George had lying around. We were very delicate with it. But yeah, just with my little Onyx Strat, and just goes from there.
You're playing with a heavy metal pedal through a PV amp. What's the next progression from there?
ADA. I went from that to an ADA MP1 with a quadriverb, which everybody was using.
Yep.
Into a Carver power amp, stereo power amp, and two Marshall 4x12s, the Valve State series.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I went from this pissy little thing to stereo. And once you go stereo, man, I see you got stereo there. It's really hard to come back from that.
It's very hard to go back just once you've had a nice stereo rig.
Yeah. So that was my rig for years, all through the 90s, was the ADA MP1. And I was saying to you before that I'd be rehearsing with the guys and people would lend me different things. I remember getting a Marshall JMP head, and the guys going, "Yeah, that's nothing on your MP1." The rectifiers came out at the time. Everyone's like, "Oh, I don't know about that buzzy sound, man. Your ADA sounds better."
We were talking earlier on. I remember I bought a dual rectifier, and the one thing that was about the dual rectifier, and it's the same probably with the JMP, there was you had to turn them up to a certain point. It was like, sounds like crap, sounds like crap, sounds like crap. And it gets to about 6 or 7 and it's deafeningly loud. And it's like, there it is. And it just sounded lush and huge, but they were so loud.
Yeah, absolutely. Soldano, Ruan Soldano's like that. When I borrowed that off him one time, he's like, yeah, around 7, dude, it really takes off and sounds great, but you're blowing the fucking windows out by then.
I guess that's one of the things that's really cool I can remember when Tom Schultz came out with the Power Soak. And that was, because I think I had one of those for a while, and that was a glorious thing. And there's a whole world of those type of things out there now.
Yeah. But back then it was just the Schultz.
Well, yeah, I think he was the first one to probably do that. I think he was. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But I do remember that was a popular thing to buy a Tom Rock, the Rockman. There was a Power Soak, and then he had the Rockman pre things, and he was a very clever man.
Absolutely,
very clever man.
Absolutely, yeah. But yeah, the ADA, man, that was my rig for the longest time. When I have people on my podcast and they phone in and they see my background, they always see the ADA and stuff. Like, oh, I had one of those and a quadriverb. I'm like, oh, just off camera here, I've still got the quadriverb.
So how old were you when you got the ADA?
Probably about 18. I just left school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've left school. What are you doing to earn a living?
First job was working at a music store. I got a job working at a place called Music Maestro.
Okay.
You remember that joint?
Yes, I do.
Yep. So with Ross Skennington was the boss and Paul Harris was the manager there. So Paul was a guitar player, and I learned a lot about guitars from him, just on how to set up guitars, how to keep them in tune, etc. So yeah, just being around somebody like that, picked up a lot of stuff.
How long did you spend working in a music shop?
I went from there, the place closed down, and I can remember my boss with tears in his eyes saying, man, we're closing the shop. I'm sorry you don't have a job, but I'm going to get you another job. I'm so happy with the way you work for me and everything. And the next day, Gary Barr rings me up. Oh. Rick, I hear you're looking for a job. Come work for me. So yeah, straight to Musicians Pro Shop.
Oh, wow. He's a lovely guy, Gary.
Yeah. Caught up with him recently, actually, at Mouse's Wake. And
oh, yeah.
It's really funny because back then I was a kid and he was a grown man. But now, as we're older, we're grown men. And it was really cool to sit with him and Paul
Middlebrook. He's kicking
Middlebrook.
big goals too. He's the Queensland rep for Jans.
Yeah. So, and the good thing working with Gary as well was I was buying a lot of stuff on lay-by there, and just my paycheck was just working it off. Yeah, that's how I afforded the two 4x12s. And yeah. It's really funny. I'm considering getting those 4x12s again. They were a really smooth sounding speaker. Okay. And we were talking about before just how spiky, if you stand away from your amp, how it can sound to where the people at the front were. And I always remember back in the day that my cabs, being the cheaper ones, didn't have that problem. They were actually a lot smoother. So I'm considering getting a couple of those again.
Yeah.
If I can find them.
The 4x12s back there, I did a big shootout to find the most suitable quad box after working out that the quad box that I was using had that thing. If you stand far enough away, it sounded very ice picky and really was very unpleasant for the audience.
I just remembered, speaking about 4x12, see, I'm avoiding saying the word quad box because that's only in Australia do they use the word quad box.
Oh, really?
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Google quad box and every result will bring you back to Australia.
Wow.
Yeah.
How interesting.
We're the only ones that say foldback as well.
Really?
Monitors. Yep.
Ah.
Yeah. This is one thing with dealing with international people on my podcast was,
Thomas feedback
Luke.
through the foldback. These are the gigs of our lives.
Yeah. So actually, before I got those two 4x12s, I had a Laney 4x12 that was made of chipboard, and it got wet, and I can remember it just disintegrating, eh?
Oh, man.
Yeah. And it was heavy as fuck.
Being heavy, it's one of those things too. It's like we were talking about before, that single 12 Camden, was it?
Kemler.
Kemler. Oh, yeah. And you were saying they're incredibly heavy but rigid.
Yep.
And I think that's part of the source of a great tone.
Could be
with a speaker cab.
Could be
super rigid.
Yeah.
Like that Marshall Tool vintage cab over there, stupidly heavy. And it'll probably never leave this room.
The thing is, you know those Bunnings
they
trolleys?
sound great. They sound really good. The heavier boxes, I think, sound really, really good.
You know, now we use those Bunnings trolleys to get our gear in and out, right? Back then, there wasn't those. So I was a skinny little teenage kid trying to carry around 4x12s.
Well, you can always put the wheels on them, Rick.
For when I got the two valve state ones, I got road cases built for those.
Yeah.
Dave Easy, remember him?
Yes, I do.
Built those for me. And so then I could wheel them in, and that was fantastic.
Yeah,
I had a funny story about using those one time.
Except if you're doing New South Wales RSL clubs, and they've all had stairs, and they still all have stairs.
Oh, we still had to deal with stairs, but at least we had handles, and it's like, can I get a hand? Yeah. But I remember playing at Club Pacific. Remember that joint upstairs in Southport? And
that was a big room too.
It was. I was wheeling my gear in. I didn't have it in the cases. I was just using the bottom bit as a dolly, and I had them stacked. And I hit a chink in the carpet with everything stacked. And I've gone to run to try and stop it as it started falling. It all just fell on me. And I can remember the guys there, somebody in the crew just going, "He's dead."
Killed by quad box.
And I was just like lifting my head and going, "I'm okay." Yeah, death by quad box.
Oh, death by quad. So I guess that's an interesting thing to talk about. Playing back then, there was no such thing as noise restrictions.
No. And I'm deaf as all hell now because of that.
Oh, wow.
Well, I say that. I'm aware of my hearing issues, just the tinnitus, and I've had my ears checked, so I know this ear's a little bit more down. So when I'm actually mixing in the studio,
so you find your left one's down?
Yeah.
Because I have the same issue. And drum kits, cymbals. Yeah, that's what I blame it
When
on.
I was in Nemesis, we used to rehearse a few nights a week in this tiny little shed, and the drummer's cymbal was right there.
Right,
That's what took it out.
Yeah, I reckon it's the same for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like one of these guys. I know a few drummers that you're talking to them and they're just nodding and they answer and you go, wow, you didn't hear what I was saying at all.
I think that's one of the things that is probably good about a lot of younger musicians now. I know I spent a lot of time playing with Troy Wright, and right from the outset, when Troy was, I think, still a teenager when he first started playing with me, he would always be wearing earplugs, always.
Yep.
And when he plays his kit, he's always wearing his like.
Yep.
It's like, Troy, can you not play so loud? And he'd be like, what?
Yeah. That's the other thing. I have been wearing hearing protection for a long time, but you tend to turn up your amps because of that.
Yeah. I went through the whole thing of buying a specific set of earplugs that would attenuate the volume but not change the tone.
Yep.
Because you can actually do that now.
Yep.
And you have been able to for quite a while.
Yep. I did try those. They're very expensive. And if you drop one as you're going to put it in, they bounce very far away, being made of rubber. Out into the crowd, you're like, oh, there goes $300.
Yeah, you're not meant to drop those sort of things.
Yeah.
Fast forward to where we are now, and most of the gigs that I'm playing now is you can't even take an acoustic drum kit in. It's like, no, it's a 85 or 90 dB limit, and an acoustic drum kit just doesn't fit into the equation.
It's funny that the whole dB scale, as you know, is logarithmic. So,
Yes.
you know.
Every 10 dB is a doubling of volume, and you don't really hear a change in volume until it's at least 3 dB, which is a weird, it's like...
Yeah. So I've had venue managers standing in front of me with their meter. Oh, turn down. It's like, I can't actually hear it. Oh, yeah, but... And I ask them, what do you got it set to? Well, the limit's 90, but I set it to 80 just to be sure. I'm like, dude, you're talking to me louder than 80 dB right now. So they don't understand. They give the power of the meter to people who don't understand decibels.
The other side of the... I've been doing a gig where I've got a guy standing at the edge of a dance floor telling me to turn down, and I'm like, we're not even playing. It's the noise of the audience. You're measuring the noise of the audience, and you're telling me to turn down. He's looking at me, and we're in between songs. Can you turn it down? He's looking at his mouth like,
not us, buddy.
We're not even playing.
Yeah. Yep.
I did a gig with Danny Fi-Fi, and was in a small club. Was just doing a duo, and Danny was running the PA, and it was a fun little gig. And they had to do their duty of care thing because they've got being licensed venues and stuff. They have to fill out forms and they do readings and how loud it is. And one of the lovely young people was out the front with the meter going, no, it's still too loud, turn it down. So Danny's turned the PA completely off, and I'm playing acoustic guitar and he's singing acoustically. No PA, no, it's just acoustic guitar and his voice. And she's sitting out there with the meter going, it's still too loud, you got to turn it down.
We walked out of a gig a few years ago, so probably about 10 years ago, where there was someone telling us to turn down. I couldn't hear the drummer, I couldn't hear myself, couldn't hear anything, and I've looked at the drummer, because we were playing in different parts of the song because we couldn't hear each other.
Yeah.
It's like, can you hear me at all? No. I said, I can't hear you at all. And they turn down. We just went, mate, we can't actually hear ourselves to play off each other. Well, no, it needs to come down. And we just looked at each other and went, yeah. Thanks, see ya. We just walked out.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I guess the whole thing now is almost everybody carries around a set of in-ear monitors with them.
I don't do in-ears.
Yeah, well, it's become at least for all of the gigs that I do, it's a good way of dealing with that problem.
Do you wear them?
Of hearing yourself? I do at times, not a lot, but there are times when it's the only solution.
Yeah, right. I've been told this is direct gig only, in-ears and stuff, and I'll just bring my little Vox amp, and it's like, I'm here, do you want me to play or not? And I'll have it on the floor pointing upwards so it's not going out to the front. And I've never had any complaints.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like the Treasury Casino, when it was a happening thing, they had a rule of no amps.
Yep.
The Grand Hotel has a rule of no amps.
Yep.
And I think that's a directive from licensing police to do with their noise restriction.
Yep.
It's a really weird situation where you're giving a performance that is so, I guess, under such strict conditions that it makes it a really difficult thing to do. It actually makes it makes the job of, and to some degree takes away a lot of the enjoyment of the job as well.
Yeah.
Is that something, I mean, like...
So another reason I don't wear in-ears is I've played with guys who do, and sound check is just excruciating. They're going, no, you do this, no, do that. And they'll be there for like 15 minutes just trying to get their mix right. And they go, Nick, what do you want? And I'm good. And I'll quite literally just hit my guitar. And they go, well, do you need any? No, I can hear myself. Oh, do you need drums? Mate, he's right there. I can hear him. You need bass? I can hear him. Yeah. If I need anything, I'll point to you and I'll say vocal up or whatever. But no, as long as I can hear myself, I'm good.
I think there's a lot of that. It is a hard part about wearing in-ears, is because if the in-ear mix is not good, you're in a world of pain.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm led to believe. There was a pretty a well-known band I was playing with that I ended up leaving quite a while ago, where the singer used to wear in-ears all the time and he forgot to wear them one time and he couldn't sing without them. He was in the wrong key.
Wow.
The whole night. Like, I got video footage of it and it's embarrassing. I remember the management ringing me and going, dude, can you have a word to so-and-so? We need to get onto, anyone post anything on YouTube, we need to ask them to pull that down. It was that bad. So I was the guy in the middle that made that call. He had wedges. He had wedges, but he just wasn't used to pitching off it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It
was a huge crowd, man.
That's an interesting thing. I mean, you've done quite a bit of studio recording, and I find a lot of people struggle when they're wearing headphones to pitch properly. And if they take one off, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, no, they can pitch really. It's an interesting concept that...
And I know why, and it's the same, another reason I don't like wearing in-ears is it's too close.
There is a certain thing about bone conduction for hearing as well.
Sure. So I've tried a couple of times, and I can remember one time just saying to the guys, sorry, I'm just not sitting in the pocket tonight. You sound fine. But it was just too direct in my head, and I think that might be what happens to some people in the studio, is it's just too direct and too confronting to hear themselves that clearly.
Because there's quite a few famous singers who are renowned for singing out in the control room with a 58.
Yep.
And recording their vocal that way.
Absolutely. Yep. And
no headphones.
I've done quite a lot in the studio through the monitors with SM7, and it sounds great. There's enough rejection. And I learned a little trick reading a thing with Barnsey where he was doing a similar thing, and the engineer just said he just flipped the phase of the vocal so it's out of phase with what was picked up by the monitors. It's like, so simple, but of course.
Yeah. It's a great way of doing it.
Yep.
So you're 18, you've got the big monster stereo rig, and the band has changed from Talk to
Pumpernicles.
Pumpernicles.
Yeah. We had a change of singer. That's why we changed the name. Yeah. So you probably would have heard of the Pumpernicles back in the day. Like, there was stickers all over every car on the Gold Coast had these Pumpernickel stickers, and we'd won all the Battle of the Bands things, and I'm not a fan of those anymore. It's like, been there, done that. What did that lead to?
Well,
some venue got free entertainment.
I think they can be done well, where it's a great opportunity for young bands in particular to go out and play in a venue with production that they would not normally get the chance to play with.
Sure.
And also get a chance to see other bands and meet other people that are doing a similar thing. I remember I did a whole bunch of Battle of the Bands back in the 80s. And the one thing that was great about them was at the band at the time, because we were going in a competition, we worked really hard at refining the songs. And we did a bunch of original songs. And, we didn't have to. You could play covers, you could play originals, but at the time, the band was playing originals. And it sort of made us work really, really hard on the songs how we performed them, actually. And then going through the heats, you'd see other bands and you'd see, oh, well, that band won, and why did they win? And how other bands put on a show, how they dressed, how they performed the songs, how they interacted with the crowd, and how that made a difference to whether people liked them or didn't like them.
Stagecraft is a huge thing for that.
That's
so
one of the
I've
things-
seen some pretty average musos that look the part up there, you know, fucking doing the shit, and people go, "Oh, they're amazing." It's like you're listening with your eyes.
It's all part of the game. And I guess that's one of the things I was getting at about the Battle of the Bands back when I was doing that sort of stuff in the 80s. I did a few of those sort of things, and they were, I think, really, really good learning experiences because you got to see other bands that you probably would never have seen before. You get to meet people that you've never would have come in contact with before. Yeah. I think from that networking, learning experience, if they're done really well, a Battle of the Bands can be a really good thing.
Yep. I guess we were lucky though. Before all that, we started doing all the supports. I'm not sure if we talked about this before we started filming or not, but just some of the bands that, as the talk, that we were opening for.
Yeah.
All your Mondo Rocks and Painters and Dockers, Richard Clapton, yeah.
And what venues would they have been in back then?
Playroom, the Patch. We talked about this the other day, how there was a circuit that you used to play.
The Jet Club?
Yeah, no, Jet Club had just closed about the time I'd started playing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
it was
remember
around...
playing at the closing of the Jet Club.
Never went to that.
It was one of my favourite venues. I love that venue.
When we played with Mondo Rock, actually, they did a show, I think they played there, but I didn't go. We played with them on the Sunshine Coast.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a travel.
It was, but the cool thing was they were actually staying across the road from the caravan park that I lived at. So after that gig, because I got to meet the band, I went and hung out with Eric McCusker and all those guys for the day across the road from my place. And if anyone tells me I play Eagle Rock wrong, nah, I've actually had the guys, you know, Ross Wilson and Eric McCusker and that show me how to do that. So,
He's a great guitar player.
Eric?
Oh,
yeah, very tasty.
Oh, just listen to all that stuff with Mondo Rock Band. The guitar playing's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great sounds.
Yeah, you get to see some good players back then. I mean, as I said, Peter Northcote was playing for Richard Clapton back then, and I had no idea who the guy with the pink ESP was until much later in Facebook. I saw a picture that he posted when he was playing with Icehouse or something, and I went, hang on, and I messaged him like, were you playing for Richard Clapton? Like, yeah. And I said, man, I was a little kid and we opened for you guys. So I was very, very lucky, mate. I lucked into playing with some really good guys.
Yeah.
Quite young. We did a reunion about 5 years ago or something.
Oh, really?
And me and Mikey were the only ones that had sort of kept playing over the years. Mm-hmm. And I said about our drummer being shit hot back in the day. He hadn't played his drums in the longest time. And it was only recently I was at Mikey's and he pulled out the footage when we played this reunion at the Hard Rock Cafe. I just turned to him and said, man, listen to Mukey. He hasn't played in 20 years. I remember with the first rehearsal after one song, he's like, don't, my hands are falling apart.
It's such a physical instrument to play.
But I was listening going, man, how lucky were we to play with this guy? Not just the flash, but just his groove back then. So I'm pretty picky when it comes to drummers. So I'll play with guys and just say...
Well, it's the foundation of everything.
Absolutely. You're only as good as your drummer.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I was going to say, Pumpernicles, because you played a bunch of original material.
Yep.
Did you record any of that stuff?
Yeah. So speaking of Battle of the Bands, when we won one as the talk, we won some studio time at Springbrook.
Yep.
And that was the only place with Rob
Malini.
Yep. So that was the only place that you could go on the Gold Coast. And it's even, it's a 40-minute drive from the coast that you could go back then to actually record.
No, there was actually a few other ones around.
Sherwell came a little later. That was
was it later?
That was more 90s. I'm talking 1988 that we...
Okay.
Yep. So we went to Sherwell's later, but that was more a 90s thing.
I think, sure.
There was Redline Studios.
Yes.
But like any serious place when we first started was up at Springbrook.
Springbrook.
Yeah. Which was good because Rob started getting me to do session stuff. So I'd go up there quite a bit at a young age and had to come up with the right part for the song. As a session guy, I was still a bloody kid, but that was a good little foray into being a studio guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was few and far between. Like once a month or so, he'd get me up there to play on something, and you're going to pay me to play on this? Wow, cool.
Yeah. It's a great learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great learning experience.
Yep.
And you got into recording yourself.
Yep.
How did that come about?
I would have messed around with 4-tracks and stuff. My flatmate, Dom Simeone, had a Porter studio, and I started messing around with that. And I had a little Boss mixer with these tiny little faders and stuff. So I started recording on that. Oh, to jump back a little bit, when I was in the Pumpernicles and the Talk, our keyboard player, Devo, went to the conservatorium to study music technology.
Oh, okay.
So first times I would have recorded would have been to do some of his assessment work. And the first time I saw a Neve console and a tape machine and stuff. Apparently there was a Fairlight in the room as well. He brought it up recently. I posted something on Facebook about the Fairlight.
Because
do you remember it?
They were ridiculously expensive.
Price of a house.
Yeah.
More than a house.
Yeah.
But Australians invented sampling.
Yeah.
And,
they did.
Yep. And changed music forever. But so Devo was going to the conservatorium and passing over to me little bits of information of what he was doing. And he had an Atari 1040 STE running what was called Notator back then.
Yep.
So I learned to program in Notator back then when it was just numbers on a screen. That wasn't what we see now in a piano scroll and everything. Cubase was around at the time as well, but you're either a Cubase or a Notator guy. So yeah, Devo was passing on little bits of information to me, and I'd sort of soak that up and reading guitar magazines as well. Then I got a synthesizer which had drum machines and stuff built into it. I was saying, along came my friend Dom, who had a 4-track, and I found out that you could take up one of those tracks by striping time code and then synchronize your Atari to it. So I do all the programming externally, and it sounded like a band, and that would still leave me 3 tracks to record real instruments with. And funnily enough, I did some guitar teching recently for Southern Sons, and Jeff, the bass player, brought up that their album, before they became Southern Sons, they were called The State. I don't know if you've ever heard any of that stuff. It's great.
No, I haven't heard any of
before
that
Jack
stuff.
joined, and Phil Buckle was the singer.
Okay.
And he said, I've still got the 4-track that we recorded that on.
Oh, wow.
No, 8-track. And I said, wow, it was all done on that. Yeah, man, we just synced it all. So that was the thing back then. You could synchronize by striping one track.
Oh, yeah. I maybe late 80s, early 90s, having the Roland MC500.
Yeah, they were very popular, weren't they?
With a floppy disk in it.
Yep.
And that was my foray into programming and MIDI
That and
sequencing.
a sound canvas or something?
No, sound canvases hadn't been invented yet.
Okay.
From memory.
Yep.
It was, I had this little square box that was a bass module.
Yep.
And I swapped a Messer Mark IIc combo in wood grain, with the wood grain cabinet with a wicker front, like a really nice, I swapped that for an MC500. At the time, that were about the same value.
Now the MC500 is worthless. It's a doorstop, and that amp would be worth about $4,000.
Something like that. Something like that.
As I said, I was messing around with the 4-track stuff, and I had my little Boss mixer that all my synths and samplers were feeding. And it's funny, back then I had a drum machine that had 5 kick drum sounds, not 5,000 like I do now. The option paralysis is definitely a thing. So when I had 5, it was like scroll, that one, that'll do. Next. So I started doing stuff.
It's like having an 808. It's like, you get that one,
but
it's a bloody good one.
It's a bloody good one. So I started doing stuff for myself.
Yep.
And I had friends go, oh, can you do something for me? Yeah, sure. And then people would hear that and so, can you do one for me as well? And that's how I started messing with that stuff. But the internet wasn't around to learn the stuff that we can now. So it was all trial and error. All I knew was that when I hit the red lights, just hit the red lights on my little Boss mixer, it started sounding good. And I didn't understand the concept of harmonic distortion and stuff back then. So I didn't know why it sounded good, but I just knew, just the occasional little red flickering there sounded good. Yeah. And then that led on to using a mini disc player, a 4-track mini disc player to do my recording. That had a built-in MIDI interface, so I didn't have to stripe the time code. All of a sudden, I could record 4 tracks.
4-track mini disc?
Yeah, man.
I didn't know they had those.
Sony MD4.
A 4-track mini disc?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep. someone just rang me a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, man, I was going to chuck out this MD4. Do you want it? Yep. So they're going to drop that around to me next week. That's the machine I had.
That'd be a very handy little device.
Yeah. It was like your basic little Porter Studio thing, but with foil. And like I said, you didn't have to stripe the one track, so that gave me an extra track.
So you could sync MIDI, and you didn't have. And that was it.
Yep.
That's
so
very cool.
I actually started.
I don't know how I missed that one.
I was using that for playback. After Pumpernicles, we had Nemesis, and then after that, I started doing this thing called Scaphoid, where it was like pretty much me in the studio with my synths and samplers, and I went out with a couple of mates to play it live.
Yep.
And that's what we were using for playback back then, was this MD4, synced with the drum machine. Drummer had the drum machine that he's playing to for a click track, and then that gave me left and right for anything that needs to be stereo, one track for bass if it was needed, and another track for percussion.
Great little system. An MD4 was being mini disc, so there's a mini disc tape. How long?
Disc.
Oh, it was a disc.
Yep.
Mini disc. Yeah. What am I saying? I'm thinking the
ADAT.
DAT tapes.
Yeah.
There's so many different digital
It has.
formats.
Yeah, it was a surprise to see the ADAT in your
with
studio.
a mini disc, how much information could you put on? Like with 4 tracks, how long could you get a 1 hour show? Could you do a?
I could fit a whole set on there. I can't remember the exact amount that it could fit on there, but I just knew it sounded good. This is before, like, it's commonplace now for people to be running tracks.
Yes.
And we got a lot of flack. I remember guys who weren't that good coming up and going, oh, we'd sound that good if we had that gear as well. I was like, dude, there's stuff all gear I'm running here. It's
that same old thing. It's like, well, if you could, it's easily available. You go out and do it yourself.
You do it, mate. Yeah. So I remember we played with Pseudo Echo, and thinking, I really want to meet Brian Canham and just tell him how much I love his band. But he saw us and he came running at me through the crowd, and the first thing out of his mouth was, mate, I love your band. And I'm like, oh, I was going to say that to you. But he was asking me, how are you pulling all this stuff off? I said, oh, this little 4-track. One thing about mini disc, it jumps. It skips. And we had a show, I mentioned my mate, Matty Day.
Is this like with vibration?
Vibration.
Yeah.
Matty actually became a really good front of house guy. And we got him to run it from out front, so I didn't have to do anything on stage, and he just pressed play on the appropriate song. And it started jumping. We'd be playing a song, and next thing you know, it's at a different part of the song, and the drummer's just looking at me like, it skipped, and we'd adjust and stuff. And Matty clicked it was the subs that were, so he ended up putting like a jacket or something underneath it to absorb that, and it fixed it. But it skips, as does CD.
Yeah.
Milli Vanilli.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
I saw that happen, actually. When I was playing for Tony Lee Scott, we did a big, not an in-store, it was a performance at a big shopping centre in Melbourne. I don't know Melbourne that well, but it was like this multi-story place. And I remember just looking up and just having story upon story of people looking down at us. And Leah Haywood was on before us, who was Sony's female signing at the time. And poor thing, her CD backing track started skipping, and they had to start it again, got to the same part and started skipping again. And it's just like, yeah, shit happens. You need a redundancy rig.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, the whole concept of backing tracks has been used for a long time. I remember talking Danny Fi-Fi when he first started out in New Zealand, they were using cassette tapes for backing tracks.
Yep.
So it's one of those things. It's not a new concept. It's been being done for a long, long time. And it's funny how it is very frowned upon by a lot of people.
I did a show with Icehouse back when I was in the Queen show, and I remember talking to one of the guys and said, "Oh, I noticed they were playing Great Southern Land, and there was some percussion and stuff. I'm looking around to see who's doing that, and you guys are running tracks then." And it was Paul Wheeler, the drummer, and he said, "Mate, we've been running tracks since I joined the band back in the mid-'80s. So tech guys have been doing it for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What are you going to have some guy there that's just doing a clave every now and then? Or I notice now, as you know, I'm going to university full-time getting my degree in contemporary music, and Brad Hoskin keeps saying to me, man, you're so good at at synthwave stuff, like that's really popular at the moment. It's like, I'm not faking it, dude. That's what I grew up listening to on the radio. That was what was around. So it's deeply ingrained in me. Another thing too, breakdancing was a big thing back then. So I was listening to a lot of the Rocksteady Crew and stuff like that. So the sound of classic drum machines is well and truly embedded in me.
Yeah. And that was, I guess it wasn't long after that where the whole sampling thing really took off too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, sampling, what it did for music. And a lot of people don't realise, like we said, Fairlight CMY, the Australians led the charge. Kate Bush, Peter Gabriel, all that stuff. The music they were coming out with, which shaped the sound of 80s music, all an Australian invention.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Stevie Wonder had one.
Yep.
You had to be quite wealthy to get access to one.
I can remember talking to mastering engineer Rick O'Neill years ago, getting an album mastered with him, and he said he ended up, because as we said, they were worth more than a house back in the day. He scored one, traded a carton of beer for it.
What?
Yeah. After they'd lost all their value, and he's just like, you got a CMI, and he traded a carton of beer for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a funny thing because the sounds that were made by them are pretty iconic now.
There's sounds that we just take for granted, which were part of the sounds that came with that orchestral stab thing that was all over stuff like ABC and Spandau Ballet and all that.
Yes, 90215.
Yeah, yep.
All of that stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
I remember reading a story of Trevor Rabin talking about the fact that he would sample his guitar parts and then play his guitar parts on a keyboard.
Okay, so the next step of that is sampling your vocals. When I had Quan from Regurgitator on my podcast last week, he said their song, the song formerly known as, which is a very Prince-sounding thing, he said, I can't sing like that. We aren't singers. We actually sang it down lower, sampled line by line into the keyboard, and what you're hearing is played back on a keyboard, pitched up slightly, and that's how they got that sound.
That's been really inventive, isn't it?
There's guys that still do that. I've heard that Calvin Harris, who's a well-known current music and dance producer, his vocals, he says he samples it and plays it all back off the keyboard.
Yeah.
And I mean, in this day and age where you got auto-tune and stuff, and I've made some pretty bad singers sound like they can sing through using Melodyne, that he still chooses to do it that way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward beyond Pumpernicles.
Yeah.
What happens for you after Pumpernicles?
I think my next band after that was Nemesis. So speaking of...
Again with Mikey
With
Edwards?
Mikey, yeah. So we had my mate Mikey that I've been playing with since I was a little kid. And there was another guy I went to school with, Brett Phillips, who was a drummer. And his idol was actually, if you ask him who are your influences, Muki, our drummer from Pumpernicles. He was like, I was one of those kids that used to watch you at school going, I want to do that. Yeah. So we ended up having Bretsky on the drums. And then through Battle of the Bands, there was a band called the Hippies from Hell that did really well in all the other Battle of the Bands. And after they parted, we got their singer, Bob, who funnily I'd met through a friend when I was working at the music store, Music Maestro that I mentioned earlier. There was a guy that used to come in on his lunch break, and I got friendly with him, Dave. And he was like, come to my place for a jam one time. And I was having a jam with him, and he lived with Bob. And Bob was like listening to us jam, and he's just like, he said to me years later, I was listening to you guys. I was like, I want to come and jam with you guys, but you don't know me. I'm not just going to come out and start singing. So yeah, that was a really cool band. And again, we won all those, Battle of the Bands, Queensland Rock Award kind of things that we'd go into. Put out an EP, recorded it at Springbrook, as everyone did. And did the hard yards, trying to get signed. I just don't think the Gold Coast is the right place to get signed. Having said that, though, there's other guys like Savage Garden and Kings of the Sun and stuff that did.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot to do with meeting the right people and timing.
Absolutely.
Timing is such an amazing thing, man.
Yep. Being at the right place at the right time and stuff, yeah. So, after that, let us see, Nemesis, did that for a while. That led on to Scaphoid, as I said, which was my electronic thing, which was pretty much a solo effort.
When you were doing Scaphoid, have you got recordings of that?
I did an EP that I did everything myself, and that's what started it, was I need to go out and play this stuff live. And I grabbed Bretsky, who was the drummer in Nemesis, and my mate that I mentioned, Sharpie, who was learning to play guitar when I was learning to play, it was like, dude, I need someone who can play guitar and bass. This ain't rocket science. Can you come and play? And he either played guitar, second guitar, or bass, depending on whether I needed. Some of the songs had blatant synth bass.
Yep.
Man, synth bass sounds so bloody good on tracks. It really does. But yeah, so some songs he'd play synth bass, real bass, and other he'd play rhythm guitar. Yeah. What came after that? I think not long after that would have been when I joined Tony Lee Scott Band, which was pure coincidence. You're talking about being in the right place at the right time. So if people don't know, Tony was a local guy who was in Zenith.
Yes.
We used to see Zenith play. I used to see Scotty Hutchinson play, and you just go, bastard, look at this guy. He's got the whole Van Halen thing right down. I was working in radio at CFM. I remember bumping into you there a couple of times. Do you remember when I worked in production?
Not really, no.
No? Yeah. So how that came about was my mate Sharpie. I was living with him. His girlfriend was Sally Rope, who was on Sal and Stu, The Morning Crew.
Oh, okay.
And we'd done a bit of a parody song of a Savage Garden song just at home on my, I think I had a Roland VS 1680 or something back then. And the production manager at CFM heard that and said, who did this? Oh, my mate Rick. Does he want a job here? So I went in there, and it was funny. I remember walking in there and saying, oh, I'm about to meet the production manager. His name's Nick Rogers. I went to primary school with a guy named Nick Rogers. I wonder if it's the same guy. And I quite literally said that out loud, walked around the corner and saw him and just took one look at him and went, it is the same guy. So that was my introduction to using Pro Tools. I can remember Nick saying, mate, this is so easy, a monkey could do it, just for making commercials and stuff, you know. So that was a really good thing for production for me, in that I would record voices, people talking, and learn to EQ it. I'd try something, and I would wake up the next day to hearing it on air. And I'm like, oh, that didn't work. I went a bit too overboard with the 16K. Let's try backing that off. So that was on NS10s, and I still use NS10s to this day because I've fine-tuned getting voices right for on air. And hearing it the next day, and everywhere I'd go, I'd hear my work and go, well, that worked. I'll keep doing that. And
do you find that's one of those things? I mean, NS10s are, what's the word? Is it ubiquitous?
It's ubiquitous, yeah, absolutely.
Throughout the industry.
Everywhere. Yep.
Particularly, you know, I remember being in studios and people having the tissue paper taped across.
Yeah, that was the old tweeters on them. Yeah, absolutely. And I actually did that on the speakers at CFM when I was working there as well, because they were really harsh.
Do you find it's one of those things that you use them because of familiarity, or is there another reason?
They're an industry standard for a reason. If you learn the sound that translates on them, it really does translate. And in fact, I was going to say about how I met Tony. The guy that I bought my speakers off was working with Tony, and I happened to be on my lunch break at CFM.
Okay.
And I had bright red hair at the time and was riding this big longboard skateboard, and I skated down to this guy's place on my lunch break to say g'day. And Tony was doing his demos. He'd been signed with Sony, and he was there with Scotty Hutchinson. And it was like, oh, fancy seeing you guys. Tony didn't remember me from Nemesis or Pumpernicles, but he turned to Scotty as I was there, and he said, we need someone that looks like this. And he turns to me, he goes, hey, mate, do you reckon you could learn to mime the guitar in 6 months? And I remember Scotty Bunch just sort of nudging him, going, don't you remember Rick, man? He can play. And I was like, yeah, I kind of play, man. So I got asked to join an act that was all over the TV and radio and stuff at the time, not because of my playing ability, because I looked the part.
Yeah.
Take Me Away was the big song that he had out, and that got to maybe 11 in the top 40 or something like that. But it was enough that we were doing all the radio and TV stuff.
He's a monster singer, Tony.
Yeah, and
great singer.
And in that world, almost as importantly, really good looking bloke.
Yeah.
Everywhere we'd go, we'd walk in, the first thing anybody would say every time was, oh my God, mate, how good looking are you? So that kind of made me realize how much the look.
Oh, yeah.
And I got hired on my look
because
that was the current thing at the time, was a skate punk kind of looking dude. But we had Dave Dwyer, who was the lead guitarist for 1927, as our production manager. So he was running all our tracks on stage. So that was really cool to have somebody. Man, he's a great guitarist. He really is.
Yeah.
One of those. There's guys in the 70s that learned to play guitar in the 70s who just know how to play around chord changes and stuff. And he's one of those guys. And I'd feel stupid. I would feel, I'm just a pentatonic kind of guy in front of him. And I've since learnt to expand my repertoire and not just be stuck in my
I think it's the things of
box.
the type of music you're growing up listening to and learning from too.
He was the Steely Dan era, man, of
Man,
guys who could
that
really
era of
play,
stuff
right?
in Chicago and all those bands, and they weren't simple chord progressions.
So the cool thing about working with Dave was he was still playing with 1927, but Dave, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, had on again, off again substance abuse issues, as a lot of rock and rollers do. You're surrounded by it. So I met the guys in 1927 through him, and I can remember being at Pacific Fair just doing some shopping one time, and I hear this guy yell out, "Hey, Red!" And I turn around because of my bright red hair, and it was Eric Wiedemann. He remembered meeting me in Sydney through my look, and he was like, "Hey," got talking to him. I'm playing a show at the Shark Bar just on a Tuesday night. Him and JJ Harris.
Yep.
Fantastic fucking drummer, that.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy, JJ too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went along to see them playing on a Tuesday, and the guys asked me to get up and, "Oh, do you want to go play a song?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to play this random song that we used to play back in the Pumpernicles and the Talk and stuff by a band called the Riptides, which was the lead singer from Gangajang, Mark Callahan. And anyway, I get up and play this song, and it actually starts off slow, but it gradually speeds up to get to the chorus. And I remember playing this song, and JJ running up to me and going, "Oh, dude, let me play with you." And I'm like, "Dude, if you don't know the song, nah, man, it speeds up and stuff." And he looks at me and goes, "I wrote the fucking song," because he was in the Riptides. I had no, "Oh, well, you get up here." So he gets up.
Played with, and JJ played with Divinals.
Divinals as he was a teenager, exactly, yeah. So I'm playing this song with him, and at the end of the night, Eric says to me, "Hey, man, we're going on the road soon. Do you want to come and play lead guitar for us?" And I remember saying to him, and this is one of the best compliments I've ever had in my life, I said, "Do you want to hear me play lead guitar for us?" And he said, "If you can play rhythm guitar that good, you're good enough to play lead guitar for us." Wow, okay. And that's been one thing that a lot of people compliment me on is my rhythm playing. And people who know, it's just like, oh man, it's just, you're nailing the rest of the 90% of the song there. And that's why I got hired to join 1927, which was a really cool experience to go out and play songs with the band that I grew up listening to on the radio.
Yeah.
Funny thing, that's trial by fire, man. I went for a rehearsal with those guys. I remember playing one song and Eric saying, and this is when I had my ADA rig, and he goes, "Oh, can you just back off the metal a bit?" And I remember when I was doing the chunk. So if you listen to 1927 songs, there's two distinct guitar parts happening most of the time. There's gunk, 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 that eighth note chug thing. And then there's this complicated delay thing going on. That's Eric that does that complicated stuff. So it was really easy to just go, oh, junk, 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 junk. So did one song and he said, "Oh, can you back off the metal just a touch?" I went, "I can do that." Menu diving on the ADA as you had to back then. Played another song and they said, "Mate, you don't have to play the guitar solos note for note if you don't want to." I said, "Oh, I can't help it. I grew up listening to that on the radio." And then they said, "Mate, you obviously know the stuff. We've been playing this for years. Do we really need to play the other songs?" I'm like, no, let's do it. And went out on tour only playing 2 songs at rehearsals with them.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember I ate shit on the first song too. There was this end part on one song and I didn't quite have it down. And of course the nerves and everything. It's like, oh, I didn't do so well there. But then once you get, have you found this? If you're playing a show and you eat shit on something, the rest of the show's great. You've made the fuck up for the night. And you're just like, oh, well, that's over and done with. Let's just relax and have some fun now.
I guess it's that thing. It puts your adrenaline you got more adrenaline.
Yeah.
And so you're more, I think maybe, I guess there's a level of nervous energy that works in your benefit.
Yeah.
I get it. It's one of those, And it's that thing too, is you've made your one fuck up. You don't want to make it. You don't want to make a second one.
It's done. It's done. I've had my fuck up. So let's just relax and have.
And everybody
good time.
does. It's one of those things too. It's like, I think that's one of the things that when you first start out and particularly with a new band and you really want to make a good impression, it can be quite like you don't want to fuck up. But the problem with it is everybody does.
That makes you fuck up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the studio when I'm recording with somebody, if they make a mistake, I'll signal them to keep going because the rest of the take will be so good because they've already made that mistake. They go, oh, well, I'm just going through the motions now. And they're relaxed. They're relaxed.
Yeah.
They drop that, oh, this needs to be perfect. The rest of it actually is because you've dropped the need for wanting to be perfect.
Yeah. That thing of you needed to be in that flow state.
That's exactly it.
That flow state.
Yeah. And sometimes to get there, you need to get that hiccup out of the way. You're done.
Yeah. So we're at a point, so you've done some work in radio.
Yep.
You've done the stuff with Tony Lee Scott. In between doing all of these different things, what are you doing to keep the money flowing through?
A bit of teaching.
Yeah?
Yeah. I've always taught a bit of guitar. Later on in life, that sort of gravitated to more working with people with special needs through the teaching.
Which is how you met Mickey.
Yeah. I got a phone call from his mum.
Yeah.
Saying I've got this young kid that's really good at what he does, just looking for some direction. But that came a lot later. Back then I was teaching at Kids on Keys music school.
Ah.
Yeah, with Todd Burns' wife, Jo, who funnily enough I went to high school with. She dated our keyboard player Devo back when I first started. So it's such a
incestuous
industry. Everyone knows everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
I was doing work teaching at Kids on Keys back in the 90s. And back then for me, it's only been later in life that I've actually learnt what the hell it is I'm doing on guitar. Back then, I always had a good ear. So most of what I was doing is people were bringing me in songs that they wanted to learn. And everyone would spin out that I would just sit there with pen and paper and they'd play this song. And the whole pop punk thing was big. So they'd play a song and I'd just sit there with pen and paper and I would just write the chords out as the song would play and go, okay, cool, I'll show you that. I'm like, what, you just did that without your guitar? I was like, yeah, I could kind of hear how that went. So that's a big skill that everyone needs to do.
Hearing intervals is, I guess that's the thing. It's like, once you get past a 1-4-5 and
absolutely,
and they tend to be, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but a lot of that pop stuff tends to be very formulaic.
Yeah, and it is 1, 4, 5, and 6.
Once you hear the formula, it's like you get to recognise the pattern.
Yep. So I think hearing in intervals is really opens up. We're not all blessed with perfect pitch. I've had people say, have you got perfect pitch? I go, nah. Once I know the key, I can just hear that it went to the 3 or the 6 or whatever. There's a guy on the internet, funnily enough, the biggest guitar channel on YouTube is a guy called The Do, and most guitar players have never heard of him. Have you heard of The Do?
No.
Look him up, man. It's one word, The Do, with D-double-O or triple-O. Yeah. And it's this guy, and there used to be this thing, like, it was called something different, but it was like chat roulette. I don't know if you remember that back in the day, where you'd just hop on and it was just randomly, you'd connect with some person sitting in front of their computer and you just start talking.
Chat roulette.
Yeah. So anyway, The Do, you never see his face.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'd dress up as a chick or dress up in funny costumes, and he'd have random people come up and he'd just say, request a song. And whatever song they named, he would just start playing it. And if he didn't know the song, he'd just pull it out, quickly listen to it, go, yeah, cool, and just play it perfectly.
Oh, wow.
Look him up, man. It's the most entertaining thing. I've watched hours and hours of this guy. He's good. He's so good. But when asked, oh, wow, do you have perfect pitch? He goes, nah, I've got really good relative pitch. So you see him as it's playing, he might just go, just to find the key, and he'd go, yep. Yeah, I've got this.
Yeah.
And play it perfectly.
Yeah. Have you ever worked with anybody who has perfect pitch?
Yeah, man. So at uni that I'm going to now, I There's a couple. No, there's one person that stands out. My friend Sive, and I've started making music with her as well, who has the freaky deaky perfect pitch, slightly on the spectrum and has all the quirks that goes with it. But one of those is that they can play every instrument.
Yeah.
And I've been making some music with her where I'll throw extended chords and it's like, how about you play bass on this? And she won't just play root notes. She actually, it's a minor 6 and knows exactly which notes to go for and everything. And it's like, wow, great. And then I listen back to when we're jamming and stuff and just what she's playing on piano and stuff. Like, perfect. So that's, So they are around.
Yeah.
And to be honest, most autistic kids, I worked at Southport Special School for quite a while, and the amount of kids there that have got perfect pitch, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, you'll strum something and some kid will just go, that's a D, that's a D. And a lot of the time I'm like, how do you know that? And they don't have the communication skills to tell me how they're doing it.
So you're going to uni now.
Yep.
What are you studying at uni?
Contemporary music, Bachelor of Contemporary Music.
Okay. And how did that come about?
Brad Hosking, who is the course coordinator, and you know Brad very well.
Yeah.
Very talented man, a lot of respect for Brad. He hit me up to do it a few years ago, just before COVID hit. And I had another friend that was doing it. It was a mature age student, Bernie. And Bernie was like, oh man, you should do this as well. You just breeze it in kind of thing. So I went to do it, and Omar Hanlon was doing it at the same time as me, but then it was really evident that the world was about to shut down with COVID, so I deferred. Omar stuck at it and is now teaching there. And a couple of years ago, he came to my place and he was like, oh, bro, you should have stuck at it. I'm teaching there now, and you know, you'd probably be doing the same thing if you had stuck there. Damn it, when does it, I might have to do it next year. He goes, no, it hasn't started yet. Like, when does it start? Starts next week. Brad, can I get back in? Yeah, man. So I jumped in, without even a week's notice and started doing it. And I really wish I had done it earlier.
Yeah.
But having said that, back when I was younger, I couldn't have done it. You needed to have AMEB, level 5, 7, whatever it was, be able to read music and stuff. But now, with something like a contemporary music course, no, we'll teach you all that stuff, how to read and everything, as opposed to the conservatorium.
You've had a lot of experience with production, and do you find that the course reinforces, or you're learning any little bits and pieces that you hadn't thought about?
Absolutely. So Brad is very knowledgeable. He's had quite a good career as producer and musical director for Amy Shark, etc. And funnily enough, when Brad, we've totally bypassed a big part of my career, was working at London Music Group.
Oh, that's right.
So when I was at CFM,
because Brad also did the London Music Group as well.
He did. So I first met Brad. He was fresh out of uni, and he came to work at LMG when I was already there. So how I got the job at LMG, I was working at CFM, and I got a call from Millsy. As you know, there was the two bosses, Wazza and Millsy.
Yep.
Millsy's like, mate, our production guy's going away for a couple of weeks. Can you come and fill in? I was, yeah, come and do that. And I remember rocking up for the second day, and he's like, mate, we had a meeting. We've decided you're staying. Okay.
as is the way of the mills.
Yeah. So I worked there for a few years. It was a jingle company, as you know.
Yeah.
Viewers don't know that. So my job was every week.
I'm sorry, for explanation for those people who are not from the music industry, when Rick says it was a jingle company, they wrote and produced ads for radio and TV.
Yep. So I was already making ads, but more voiceover stuff at CFM. And this got into actually having to produce as a one-man band all the backing stuff. So I'm sorry if you were getting any session work through them, but I know other people like Lee Sierra and Jules Parker. It was like, oh, great, we don't have to hire them anymore. Rick, you just do it.
Yeah. No, I did a lot of session work back in early days. I say early days, through the late 80s, early 90s, and was getting paid really quite well. And then by the time, and because obviously Wazza and I were working in a band together, but by the time Wazza and Millsy came along, the amount of money that was being paid to do that stuff, it was, I mean, I did it a little bit, but it was at a much, much, much reduced rate.
So I remember saying that I was, as a kid, doing sessions at Springbrook, and what they were paying me then was the same as what people were getting paid bloody 20 years later. It didn't really increase.
Well, it was considerably less.
So yeah, when I started working at London Music Group, the producer there was Hamish Robertson. I almost said Robinson then. And was working with him for quite a while with the two producers. And that was an interesting gig. As I said, we were just self-sufficient where we played drums, bass, guitar ourselves. I'd even sing my own ads. And Hamish left. I think he got a job for ABC or something. And we got this fresh-faced kid out of uni named Brad Hosking. And so that was funny to meet Brad back then. Not funny, but just seeing where he is now.
He's a very intelligent person.
Absolutely.
Absorbs information very quickly.
Yep. So it was good to see somebody who was fresh out of uni and without the real world experience and doing things how they were shown to do it at uni, as opposed to getting some real world experience and
learning it via doing the hard slog.
Just doing it. Yeah. So I have all the respect for Brad in the world and the way he teaches and where he's gotten to in academia. And so talking about studying at uni under him, having known Omar as well over the years, I produced his the first Hanlon Brothers record with him and Sire. And so those guys knew a bit about my background and would actually use it in class. So there's times where Brad would be learning about how to mic up guitar cabs and stuff. And he would just straight out say, dude, bring your guitar gear in and you take the class. And I would do that. So he doesn't have the ego of, you can't steal my thunder. Omar's the same, where we had to learn how to do some programming in Logic and stuff. And he's like, Rick, you used to work for Apple teaching this stuff. You take the class. So those guys are so comfortable with themselves that they know that I might have a bit of experience in something and will help me get it. So it's good that they recognise you have industry experience and will draw upon that rather than, stop disrupting the class with a different way of looking at it that the people might get that they're not getting the way I'm showing it.
It's like we're going back to the Battle of the Bands thing. You learn, it's a great place to be because you'll learn not only from the people who are teaching the things, you'll learn from the people around you.
Absolutely.
And they inspire you to be better as well.
Absolutely.
Because it's to some degree a competitive environment to be in
as
as well.
But it's also a family amongst them, I guess.
Yeah.
It's been a great introduction to the next generation that's coming through as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really wish I had done it earlier, as I said before. I flew blind on guitar for the longest time. I knew my pentatonic scale and I knew guys who were more learned than I was. I knew they could see through the way I played guitar. Guys who had a bit more knowledge on extended harmonies and stuff, and I'd hear them play and I'm like, oh, you know so much more. I wish I knew that stuff you're doing, but I just don't. I'm self-taught and
but I guess that's the thing. It's like being exposed to those people. If you at least get the chance to say, what are you doing? What are you
I
doing?
didn't understand what the hell they were saying. So let's take, for example, someone like Aaron Saxon. Mm-hmm. I remember Aaron playing in Cry Wolf back, I would have been Pumpernicles and Nemesis days, and there was two guitar players in their band. It was always, the focus was on Gene O'Reilly, and Aaron was more the second guitarist in the band. Aaron disappeared for a year or two and came back just owning it. And because he started playing with, I'm trying to think of her name, that played keyboards in, was it Eva?
Yes.
Yeah, that played in Voodoo Groove with Tommy Hamlin and Damien Barnard. And just seeing, it's like, wow, you went from being a pentatonic hack to actually knowing what you're doing. I can hear that. And quizzing him about it and just not understanding a word he was talking about. But a big turning point for me in that was when I was playing in the Queen show. I would take some extended solos and I would try and break out of just my little safety boxes, and I would see videos of myself just like, oh, okay, you're a bit lost there. There's a few too many wrong notes breaking out of your little safety box. And I put the call out on Facebook, hey, I want to learn what the hell it is I'm doing with guitar. How do you guys view the fretboard and stuff? And I mentioned Dave Dwyer before from 1927. He sent me this PDF of this handwritten guitar manual that he had, that he was one day hoping to get published and everything. And it was fantastic. It had all the explanations of how he approaches the guitar. Here's your minor pentatonic, here's your major pentatonic, here's the two combined. Oh, that's a big thing, the minor major overlay scale. That's that sound that I'd hear guys like Eric Clapton and Stevie Ray do. And it's like, what are you doing? I can't tell if that's major or minor. It's like, well, it's both. As well as explaining the modes and everything. Modes I had a kind of a handle on because I went to a Frank Gambale clinic when I was 14 years old. The guys from the local music store took me to that.
Yep.
And Frank explained the modes, not in a mathematical way. You know, most people are like, oh, it's simple. 1, 3, flat and 7. You're just like, what?
It's a really weird concept, the whole modal system.
And it's something that when you use it, wow, man, you don't have to learn any other scales.
It's the same scale. It's just a different starting point for the scale.
Yeah. How do you use that? And going to see Frank Gambale, he broke it down. I'll show you exactly how he explained it. Frank went, okay, what key am I in? Everyone went, A. And he said, what key am I in? And everyone went, G. And he went, okay, what key am I in? And everyone went, D. And he went,
Same
hang
chords.
on, I played the same chords.
It's all the 1, 4, 5.
How is it that they're in different keys? And it was like, oh. He said, I was playing in different modes. So his explanation was, if you see two major chords a tone apart, that's your 4 and your 5 of the parent key.
Yeah.
And that was just like, that is so simple.
Yeah.
Wow, why don't other people say that? Why are you going on with all this mathematical stuff that I don't understand? Yeah, so that was a bit of a...
So the A and the G are the 4 and the 5 for the D.
Yep.
It is actually a relatively simple thing. It's amazing how we can get this most amazing, complex musical thing out of such a simple layout.
Absolutely. And so one thing that I've gotten out of going to uni, music theory isn't that hard. And it's just a way of explaining what you're doing.
Yes.
So, I mean, back in the 90s when grunge was big, it was almost like a badge of honor. I don't know music theory. And if I hear somebody do that now, I just go, what a cop-out. What a cop-out. It's not that hard.
At what age did your parents work out that you were colourblind?
You had to do a test in school. And this is in primary school.
Yep.
Grade 1 or 2. And they show you these things, with dots on it. You'd have done the test.
Oh, yeah.
Ishihara test, if you want to look that up. And there'll be a circle with a whole bunch of dots and you've got to say what the number is in it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the ones that are reliant on red-green receptors in your eyes working it out for you, I just look at it and go, yeah, nothing. And people are like, really? You can't see that? I'm like, ah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can remember, again, my mate Matty Day driving home from seeing the baby animals in Lismore RSL Club back in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And he's like, why do you drive so slow at night, man? I'm like, oh, because I, just trying to navigate the road and all that. He goes,
and the road from Lismore was a bit of a hairy one.
Yeah, before they extended the M1 and stuff. And he's like, well, can't you tell, man, like the red ones are on the right and the green ones are on the left. And I was like, there's red and green ones? It's like, yeah, can't you see that? I'm like, no, I can't, man. Yeah. So that's just another example.
yeah.
If there was a green
I
field,
actually never thought about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't even know that there was different colours.
So I guess with traffic lights, you'd basically go reds at the top and greens on the bottom.
Yeah, they're different enough and usually separated. There's not a whole bunch. Okay, somebody said something to me the other day. We were looking at from my balcony at the Surfers Paradise skyline, and somebody asked me, where's the casino from here? And they said, is it near that red light? I looked at them and said, there's a red light. When people talk about stars and planets being different colours, I can't see that.
Oh, wow.
I got a Music Man OLP bass that I refer to as my pink bass, and everyone goes, "No, dude, it's salmon." I go, "Salmon's just another,
pink.
it's just pink, isn't
another
it?"
flavour of pink.
Yeah, yeah. And they go, "Nah, that's distinctly a different colour." All I see is pink, dude.
Of all of the things that you've done, what would you say would be a highlight?
Did some pretty massive gigs with Killer Queen when I was pretending to be Brian May.
May, yeah.
And then currently playing with Absolutely 80s, which is the lead singers of a whole bunch of 80s bands I grew up listening to on the radio.
Brian Mannix and
Scott Kahn,
Scott
Sean Kelly from The Models,
Yep.
Ali Fowler, Shantuzis, Dale Ryder, Boom Crash Opera.
Yep.
Who else is in it? Freddie from Machinations, Dave from Real Life. Playing Send Me an Angel with the guy that actually sang it. So a lot of people think I'm saying I'm in an 80s tribute band. It's like, no, I play in a band with the lead singers from all these classic bands.
You do a podcast as well, and you've done a bit of online stuff. What prompted you to get on to doing the online thing?
I saw, it was probably someone like Ola England or something like that, do a tour of China. I think it was China. And it was like the Beatles had come to town for this guy who was doing product demos. And the penny dropped for me. It's like, okay, everyone's saying that the music scene's dying and everything. This is the future, isn't it? This is how you get more of a profile in the music scene. And so I thought, I'll have a go at this. I actually looked up his channel and went to oldest videos first. And I saw where he started versus where he is now. And he was terrible. He's since pulled all that stuff down. But It was just picture of like just focused on the amp and this voiceover that was like, it's like, this is the same guy. He started as that, and look at him now. Hello everybody. Blah, 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 blah. He just got comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I'm going to do this, and I'll do it for a couple of years, and no one will take notice, and I'll get over all those things that we talked about talking too fast and saying and I have a tendency to go in between things.
It's one of those things you never stop learning.
And I thought, okay, I'll do this for a while under the radar and I'll get comfortable with it. Yeah, my third video went viral and I just wasn't ready for it, man. I really wasn't ready for it. I didn't have the workflows down. It would take me all day to set up all the lights. I told you before I had a camera that the autofocus was broken on.
Yes.
So I'd be sitting there like this, don't move as I read a script and it was very
Deer in the
awkward.
headlights.
Yeah, when I look back, yeah. But I remember going to NAMM not long after that and just the power of people knowing who you are through that. I saw this video, I shit you not, a couple of days before going there of Phil X talking about when he met Peter Frampton, who I've since had on the podcast as well. And he said, Peter Frampton came into backstage at a Bon Jovi gig and went up to him and was being all Phil X, hey, Phil X, how you going, blah, blah, good to see you, man. And he went up to him and went, Peter Frampton, it's really good to meet you. And he goes, man, we've met. And he goes, no, we haven't. I'm pretty sure I'd remember meeting Peter Frampton. I must just know you through online. I feel like I know you. And he goes, no, we never met. I shit you not, man. A couple of days later, I'm at NAMM and I see Phil X just over yonder and he sort of looks my way and he does and I did one of those.
Yeah. Who, me?
Just in case he wasn't actually waving at me, right? And he was talking to this hot chick and he excused himself and he came up to me. He was like, dude, so good to see you, man. You know, and I looked at him and I said, we've never met. He goes, I know you don't. I'm like, nah, I think maybe you've seen me on one of my YouTube videos. And it just spun me out that the same story he told about Peter Frampton was happening there. And
he seems like he would be an he's very energetic for now.
Animated.
He just seems like he'd be a real great guy to hang with.
Yeah. Well, to be in a band like Bon Jovi and stuff, and to be a hired hand, one of the main things is you've got to be cool to hang out with.
Yeah.
And I said that to Pete Thorne when I had him on, because Pete Thorne gets all the big gigs as well, and he's now playing with Satriani and Vi.
Yeah.
And I know I said Satriani funny, or did I listen to him say his own name? Most Aussies say, or most people say Satriani. It's like, you actually listen to the guy say his own name?
Yeah, that's Australian, mate.
No,
Australian.
Everyone says Satriani, but listen to him and Steve Vai, who's known him for quite a while, Satriani. But anyway,
Was that the American Annie?
no, it's just
New
how
Yorker,
it's-
Satriani. Oh, sorry. I just realised I've got a Joe Satriani guitar set.
You do, yeah, yeah.
No, I've been a big fan of his for years.
Oh, he set the benchmark for us, didn't he? As
Yeah.
kids, that was. You started off, you played some surf guitar, like, the Shadows, you played Apache and Wipeout for the first couple of months to get the coordination, and then you moved on to Van Halen and Satriani.
His sense of melody and the fact that he's actually be able to make a whole career out of instrumental music.
But he writes memorable melodies. I see a lot of other guys doing instrumental stuff, and they just want to show off their chops. It's like, I can't tell you how this song goes. I'm listening to it right now, and there's nothing for me to tell you. Oh, the song that goes.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Whereas his
memorable.
Oh, the song that goes. Ba-na-na-na-na-na, ba-na-na-na-na. It's a singable melody, isn't it?
Yeah.
But so to get back to
even that, always with me, always with that. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Absolutely.
Beautiful melodies.
Absolutely.
And the fact that it does that great thing where it goes from the major chords to the minor chords
yep.
and then back to major again. It's just like,
Yep. So doing the online thing, as I said, I thought I'd be doing it for a couple of years before anyone would take notice, and it sort of hit a bit too quick. I wasn't ready. I didn't have workflows down. So I was scared to keep producing content for quite a while, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
Just because I didn't have the right gear and everything. And it's taken me years. As I did get ready to do it, had some family health issues, which have been ongoing for the last few years. And I'm finally at a point now where I can just walk in, hit a button and go. All my lights are all just turn that on. Everything's already on. As I told you, I'm not recording to SD cards or anything anymore. It all just goes straight into my computer, so I don't have to pull cameras off stands to get to the cards and, I've just ruined my shot. It's all set up, ready to go now. So yeah, the product demo thing, podcast, I'll be straight up. I used to watch Tone Talk with Dave Friedman and Mark Huzansky.
Yep.
I met Mark at NAMM, and it was one of those things. He knew me from online. I knew him. I was at the Friedman booth. They got like everything else is outdoors, but they had their own like room that they'd built, soundproof room where they're doing everything. You'd walk in, and much like when I first walked in here, it's like, give me a sec for my eyes to adjust. I walked in there, couldn't see anything at first. Eyes come good. I look over, there's Dave Friedman standing behind a bar, and he looks at me and he's like, because I actually got my pass to NAMM through them.
Yeah.
And then I look around the room and I lock eyes with Mark, and he's just come over. He's going, oh, hey, man. He knew me through, and I was watching his show, got talking. He's like, hey, let's go to the Fender. I'm going to the Fender booth. Do you want to come with me? Yeah, yeah. And I've been friends with Mark ever since. But I would watch their show and thinking, oh, maybe I should try something like that. And just started with a couple of local friends. Well, not local, like I'm lucky enough to have known people like Dave Leslie and playing through the 80s show with Scott Kahn. And so I started just doing people I knew. And then just one-upping it every time. Name dropping the previous people that I'd had on to the point where you're starting to get international names on there. But it's all based on, you've had Steve Stevens on. Oh, you've had Andy Timmons on. Oh, you've had Peter Frampton on. Yeah, I'll come on. So yeah, just one-upping where you were before. So I had a couple of years off from doing it. The great thing is when I first started doing it was when COVID shut
I was
the
going to
world
say,
down.
what did you do over COVID?
I did 4 podcasts a week,
Yeah.
live. Unlike yours, I don't pre-record them. I do it straight straight to YouTube. I don't want to watch myself back, man. If ever I see myself, I'm like...
Well, I didn't do any podcasting over COVID, but I tried doing the live stream thing with the band, and we started out doing it live and ran into... It was such a massive learning curve, ran into so many problems, and the main problem ended up being just not having enough upload speed.
Yep.
So the only way we could really get around it was basically recorded, and once it was all recorded, then you could upload it. Sure. And that was the only way we could do it, because there was a whole bunch of them that was, I remember there was one point where it was like, oh, we got that one working, but you could only get up like 720p.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look that great.
Yeah.
And
1080
and you're in this room and you've got the smoke machine on the moving lights and stuff, and it's like, you're trying to, I really wanted it to be a quality thing. I had guys standing in here mixing sound, and we worked out a way of mixing sound in the room and then running a Cat5 cable so you could actually go and mix from next door, so you could actually hear what the broadcast mix was like. And there was a whole, it was a really...
it's not easy, is it?
No, it's really hard.
But yeah, so doing that, Tone Talk, I used to watch that, like I said, and saw that they were just doing it live and got to know Mark and Dave. I'd known Dave for a bit before that, been a customer of his way before Friedman Amps. And man, they were actually very, rather than seeing me as a competition or anything, very helpful, and some of my biggest supporters, which is really funny. I had Jason Tong from Head First Amplification on a few weeks ago, and he was just saying about how the other amp builders are the guys that are going, oh, check this guy, rather than, oh no, this guy's crap or whatever.
I think that's one of the really, really cool things. It does seem to me like the online community is very supportive.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, I did that for a while, and then when I went to uni, I actually stopped doing it for a year or two. To be honest, the last one before I took a break, I took a bit of a hit to the ego, because I did one with Simon Hosford, and I'm thinking to myself, there's nobody asking any questions or anything here. It said it was streaming and everything, and it got to the end of this great 3-hour chat, and it didn't actually stream. And I just felt like such a fucking idiot and so apologetic, and I was just like, oh, man. And I really took a hit to the ego, and I took a good time off from doing it after that. So I started getting back onto it. I don't have much of uni to go, and I had quite a big long break, and it's like, I got 5 months off. Let's start creating content again. And just got a couple of local people who are known, but just know me. And I didn't want to get back into a live situation and have Steve Vai on and go, oh, sorry, this doesn't work anymore. I've got a new system and it's not working the way, so hey, let's get some people I know and
make sure the system works.
Make sure it all works, and
get back up to speed.
If things fuck up, they're going to not be going, stay away from this guy kind of thing. And within, say, 2 episodes, it was like, well, that all works and I feel comfortable doing it again. Let's start reaching out to some other people.
The problem that you had when you had Simon Hosford on, was that an internet-based issue?
I don't know. The software said I was streaming and it wasn't. So now I can see, I've got the camera in front of me, but I've got a big TV behind it, and I can see.
You got somebody you can monitor the live feed.
So I'm actually steering it, changing the camera angle and everything as I'm talking. I always say to people, I'm trying to steer a show while I'm doing this. If I seem disinterested from looking around, I've actually flicked the camera to just you for a second while I do something, and I show them my controller. I'm actually doing all this from here. If I do this, it means I really need to pee, so just keep talking for 30 seconds. I'll be back in a sec, because that's happened.
Yeah.
And
well, it happened to us today, but fortunately, we're pre-recording.
Yeah.
So for those people that don't know, this isn't live. We're shooting this on a Tuesday in February.
Yes.
By the time this goes to air, it'll probably be a Monday in...
And this is where I go, sucked in, Scott. You have to look at yourself on camera and go, do I really talk like that? Do I really look like that? No. Oh my God, I come across as an idiot. That's why I don't watch myself back.
Yeah.
I
think it's a very humbling experience.
As I said to you,
but it's a good learning curve. I think watching yourself back, I think you should. I think you should do a little bit of it.
I was talking to, we need one of those, on the pedal show, they got the squeaky thing when they name drop.
Oh, yeah.
So as part of the 80s show that I play with Wilbur Wilde's in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was talking to Wilbur and he said, oh, so what type of guests you had? And I said a few of the guests. He went, oh, that's some serious names there. And got talking to him and he's done a shitload of TV and everything. And I was like, something came up about washing yourself back. And he said, oh, no, I don't wash myself back. I feel like an idiot. I'm so much freer. Just do it. Did it the first time. I don't want to see it back. And apparently a lot of big name people are the same. They're just like, oh, I don't want to wash myself back.
A lot of actors are like that.
Yeah. So recently I use in the neck position of my Charvel Henrik Donegay signature model, I've put in what Andy Timmins uses, the Damasio Cruiser neck pickup. And I wasn't sure if he had it wired to see a 250K or a 500. And I was,
what would you, because it's a humbucker, so you'd use a 500, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I couldn't remember. And it's funny talking to Charles Cillier about it. He was like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's a blah, blah, blah. I know this because I watched your episode with him and I think that's what he said. And yeah.
So you had to go back and dive through it.
A couple of days ago, I went to watch to see if I could find the part and I sort of scanned through and it was one of those.
Cringe.
Actually, it's not that bad. I thought it was worse. I thought I'd come across worse on camera already.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's not too bad.
Yeah.
I think it's like singing. I mean, you're obviously not a singer, but I remember recording my voice singing. It's probably, I guess, the same recording your voice talking. When you first hear yourself recorded and listening back, you go, that's not how I sound. That's not my voice. I don't sound like that.
Yeah.
But there comes a certain point in time where you go, that's the way I sound. And I'm okay with that.
And
I think looking back at yourself is one of those things too. Is there's a certain point where you just go, that's the way that I am.
Yeah. Doing it live though, man, it's done. I don't have to go back and spend a day editing or anything.
Yeah,
it's amazing the reach that it has. There's certain videos I've had that I thought, oh, no one's watched that. But then I'll get somebody quite well known in the industry going, hey, or they'll name drop it. I'll see somebody else I talk about Tone Talk. There was one video that I'd done and I thought, oh, geez, only 100 people watched that. There they are talking about it. It's like, well, it was only 100 people, but it was 100 of the right people.
Yeah.
And I had recently when I was teching for Southern Sons, they had Pete Drummond playing drums because Virgil's living overseas now. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until the second day I rocked up at Twin Towns and I spent the day hanging with them the day before working. And Pete Drummond says to me the second day as I walked past the kid, he goes, oi, you're famous to me. And I went, what? He goes, I didn't click, but you're the guy from the podcast and I watch you. I'm like, oh, wow. So.
It's getting close now. You come in with a coffee today.
I did. Is it almost your coffee time?
It's almost my coffee time. Actually, it probably much is my coffee time and my breakfast time.
And you've got hours of stuff to sift through now?
It'll be fine. It'll be good.
You're going to cut out all the bits that make you look not as cool and cut out all the bits where I look cool and make me look like a dork, aren't you?
I generally what I try and do is cut all the bits out where I start talking about myself because I don't think that's very cool.
Well, it depends, man. So
if it's one of those things, if it relates well, it's cool. But
it actually breaks down and gets people talking more. There's been times where people say, man, how did you get Jack Jones to open up so much to you when you had him on and he was talking about stuff that people normally wouldn't talk about on air? It's that whole thing of having a conversation and not doing an interview.
Yeah, it's more about a conversation, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and that conversation's a two-way thing. If you edit that out, so be it, and that makes it look like the other person's opened right up to you.
Yeah, it comes down to me of as the rain comes pouring down. It comes down to me, I think, to I don't want it to be a 3-hour podcast. But I also want it to look like it flows and it's it's as natural as it possibly can be. And realistically, I don't want to edit anything if I can.
Yeah.
Because that just takes more time.
Yep.
And when I started the podcast, from my point of view, I thought, okay, I did a lot of research about it. And one of the big things that everyone said is if you're going to do it and you want it to be successful, you need to be consistent.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, I'll do one a week and it'll be come out every Monday, and I'll dedicate one day. So each podcast will take me a day. By the time I shoot it, edit it, do all of the things that happen, that's a day's work.
Yep.
And if I can get it efficient to get it to be a bit less than that, that'd be great. I don't really know how I'm going to do that. I don't think I ever will, but there might be a way.
You'll refine the workflow.
Yeah. And I have been, which is good. I think the biggest thing is that which I think I'm getting better at, is getting the colour grading correct. I look back at the first couple and it's like, the first one I did with Louis Shelton, and the colour grading's terrible.
So
it's terrible.
To try being colourblind and having a colour grade. I've had to learn to use meters.
Yeah.
Or better still, I just set my lighting temperature to 5600 Kelvin, which is natural.
And then make sure the
daylight,
camera
and then just make my
matches.
cameras are set to 5600 as well. And
that's a smart and sensible thing to do. Yeah. I guess the difficult thing in here is you've got backlighting, you've got big front lighting, you've got this lighting. That
doesn't really matter. That is one of those things that you refine as you're going, but more importantly, it's just the content.
Content is key.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the most popular. Okay, let's talk about guitar YouTubers. One of the most popular guys out there is Johan Sigeborn. Do you know him?
No.
The Swedish guy who talks into his phone. I've got my phone here, it's over there. Hi, today we're going to talk about it. And it's the worst production value, but he's one of the best dudes out there, man.
So it's good content.
Absolutely. Talking to Leon Todd, he's just using crappy little Canon M50s like I am.
Yep.
And he's like, well, does the trick.
Does the job.
Does the trick.
Yeah.
You know, like the way he presents it and everything is far more important than which camera he's using and stuff. And I mean, I do know some guys out there. I was very fortunate to go to 42 Gear Street, which is run by Henning Pauly.
Yep. And
with some of the biggest guitar YouTubers in the world, and just learning from what they have do, and it's all about the content and thumbnails.
Oh yeah, thumbnails.
People overlook how long it takes to come up with a thumbnail.
Yeah, I've decided that I was going to go with a particular system and a particular look, and I don't know if it's working in my favour or not, but hopefully it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't particularly want to change it now because every particular thumbnail has a look. So when people I'm hoping that it becomes a thing. So when people are scrolling through, they go, "Oh, that's."
Exactly.
They recognise it's like a brand. It's like a calling card.
So
brand.
without even looking at it, if I just see the writing, I can tell Henning's just by his font that he uses on everything. But then there's other guys.
I see the same thing with like the pedal show guys. And they all have there's a theme to all of their.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's your mics for rejection on the rain?
We'll find out.
That's where you use
I've done a
SM7s.
couple before, and it hasn't been too bad. I do run a plug-in from Waves that is a noise reduction, ambience cancelling thing out.
Yep.
And it seems to do the job. Like I say, I don't want to be spending inordinate amounts of time editing. You know, I mean, you could go through and go, okay, well, I'm not speaking, so I'll mute that mic, and then he's not speaking, I'll mute that mic, and it just becomes a lot of work and a lot of time.
I was talking to Leon about that the other day, Leon Todd.
And it does sound better when you do that, but it's just too much time.
Well, just trying to, when you're playing, get your vocal mic not picking up the guitar, and he actually goes through and cuts it out manually.
Yeah.
Whereas I said, I've actually hooked up some compressors and stuff, side chaining now, so that it'll automatically duck it for me.
Yeah.
And there is a slight bit of artifacts to doing that, but it just makes it a bit easier.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, I guess it comes down to how much time, and like I say, I've thought that I'll spend a day, and if I can work out a way of doing something more quickly and more efficiently with a sufficient quality, because it's that thing, you want it to be nice for people to look at, because obviously it's a podcast. It's not about, we're not recording just the audio, we're recording the video, and if people are going to be looking at it, you want it to look relatively nice.
Yep.
I want people to be in focus. which sometimes they're not. But, you know, it's all part of the learning curve.
Well, for some people, you know, that might actually work in their favour.
Yes. Well, on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much, Rick.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for spending the time here today.
No worries, mate.
I'll put links for Rick's podcast and other stuff that Rick's been up to in the description below. And we'll see you on the next podcast, or at least I will. And Rick will see you on his podcast, or you might see him.